Hi, I am Dr. Bree, and I have my pelvis here today because we're going to talk about how to avoid prolapse, how to prevent this very, very common condition that affects up to 50% of women who've given birth. Now, every woman is at risk for developing prolapse. I hate to say it, but it's true. Every woman is at risk for developing prolapse, whether or not you have ever been pregnant. But if you have been pregnant, or if you are currently pregnant, you do have a slightly greater risk. So let's go ahead and talk about what is prolapse and how to avoid it. I have three basic categories that I want you to really think about to avoid prolapse and give yourself the best chance at having this condition not happen to you. All right, so first of all, what is prolapse? Prolapse is basically, first let's talk about the pelvic floor muscles. So this is the pelvis right here, and these muscles at the bottom are your pelvic floor. Now, the pelvis sits kind of like this in your body, and your pelvic organs, so your bladder, your uterus, and your rectum are all like little puzzle pieces in here, in this area. And those organs can shift, they can descend from their rightful position, one or more of them, and can contribute to prolapse. And what makes that happen is lack of support and kind of overstretching of the tissues that hold them in place, and or lack of support from the muscles below. So lack of support from above and or lack of support from below. Another thing that can contribute is if the muscles down below the pelvic floor are really, really tight, or if there's scar tissue that can contribute to kind of pulling and tensioning on the tissues that surround these organs. Everything is kind of packed into this area and held in place by fascia. And so when there is tension in the muscles or scar tissue in the area, it can pull on everything and contribute to that shift in organ position. So what it feels like when one or more of the pelvic organs shifts and moves out of position is it can feel like a heaviness in your pelvis. A lot of people describe it like it feels like there's a golf ball in their vagina. And I'll show you a little more about what can happen. So this right here is your uterus, and this is your vagina. So basically with prolapse, the uterus can actually descend, and you can feel the cervix down a little bit lower in your vagina, or the rectum can descend and push into the back vaginal wall, or the bladder can descend and push into the front vaginal wall. So those are all different types of prolapse, and they all make you feel heavy and like there's a lump in the vaginal area. Again, it's a very common condition, and if it happens, there's a lot you can do to actually make it feel better. So please don't be scared and think, oh no, everything is over if I develop this condition. No, you can do a lot to strengthen your muscles, make sure you're living a lifted lifestyle, as I like to call it, and making sure your posture is good, all sorts of things. If you do need help with this condition, check the video description. I have a course called Lift that can help you. But right now, let's talk about my top tips for avoiding prolapse and preventing it from happening in the first place. It's just so sad to me that so many women have no idea this is even a thing. And so they don't know to do these basic things I'm going to share with you right now. So the three basic things that I want you to keep in mind is to avoid straining, avoid hunching, and avoid pinching. And I'll tell you what all of those things mean right now. So avoid straining. The first one is we don't want to strain to pee or to go number two, to poop. So no straining to pee or to poop. Now, what can happen is a lot of times people don't even realize they're straining to get their pee out quickly, but they do. We're in a very fast-paced rush society, and a lot of times you might strain to pee and not even realize it. So please, the next time you go to the bathroom, don't push to get your pee out. If you do that every time you go, it's going to cause a lot of downward pressure on your pelvic floor. Now, I want to show you an example right now of what this repetitive downward pressure can do to your pelvic organs. This is a little bit extreme, and please don't let it scare you. This is really kind of supposed to be like silly right now, but it's true. This is what happens. This chicken, you've probably seen this toy before. Basically, every time you strain, you have this pinching and pressure up high that's causing strain. And look at what happens to the chicken. It's supposed to be an egg, but this is really a great model of a very exaggerated version of what's happening with prolapse. So you can see that pushing downward every time you strain, that pressure occurs, especially when you're going to the bathroom and your muscles should be relaxed to allow the poop or the pee to flow out. If you're really bearing down and straining every time you use the bathroom, that's causing this over time. So we don't want to strain repetitively. Now, this is very common with bowel movements because a lot of people are constipated, so please drink plenty of water, eat lots of fiber from fruits and vegetables, and if you need to use a squatty potty to elevate your feet and get yourself in a better position for having a bowel movement, that's great. You can find out lots of information about squatty potties online. All right, so the other thing that can cause straining is chronic coughing. So if you are a smoker, then please stop smoking for many reasons, but the chronic cough is definitely something that can contribute to strain on your pelvic floor and your pelvic organs. The other thing is if you do have a chronic cough or some condition because of allergies or a respiratory issue of some sort, see what you can do, natural remedies to help open your airways and help with that. I also encourage deep breathing exercises. Really try to breathe into your side ribs and even your back body. Really breathe deeply and all around. Work with a respiratory therapist if you need to help with your breathing and help with your cough so that you're not constantly coughing and causing that straining. Now, another thing that can cause strain and that kind of bearing down feeling is incorrect lifting. So if you're a weightlifter or if you do heavy lifting in your job all day, I actually knew a gardener once who developed prolapse and she'd never had children, but she was a professional landscaper and she did a lot of heavy lifting and she had never really been taught how to lift correctly. And so all of that lifting was straining downward on her pelvic floor and her pelvic organs. And so what you need to do when you're lifting is you want to be sure that you are really getting close to the item you're lifting. You're not hunching like this. You're getting close. You're engaging your core and you're exhaling before or as you lift the item. It's really important to exhale during the hard part. Exhale as you lift. That's going to help manage the pressure and prevent straining. So be sure you're lifting correctly. Now, the avoiding of hunching. This is a really big deal. So hunching is a big problem. Think of people who are working at an office all day. I'm just going to give you an example. So if you are at an office, if you have a desk job and you find yourself sitting like this for a lot of the day, this is really common, unfortunately, this tucked under bum and this rounded spine and this forward head posture. Just look at all of the pressure downward on the pelvic organs versus lifting up and sitting with a nice tall posture. So feel it for yourself. Feel the difference between this rounded, hunched spine and this lifted spine. You can feel the increase in pressure on the pelvic organs. So this is something, just thinking of how you sit and stand all day long can really, really go a long ways toward keeping your pelvic floor healthy and your organs healthy and preventing prolapse. Sit tall, stand tall, don't hunch. It's very similar to pinching. So this idea of rounding and hunching is kind of similar to this. The increase in pressure that can occur is similar to pinching around the middle. So people who wear waist trainers or any type of tight belts or tight clothing that constantly pinches around the middle, or if you do a lot of sit-ups and crunches that are pinching around the middle, again, we could get our chicken, I won't, but that little rubber chicken, and imagine that pressure, that downward pressure. When you're pinching, the pressure has to go somewhere. It's probably not going to go up as much as it's going to go down. Going up, you have your lungs, you have your ribs, but going down, there's a lot of soft tissue and a lot of space for that pressure to go down. And if you're not supporting from below, then that prolapse is more likely to happen. So we want to avoid pinching around the middle. This is not to say you can't ever wear a belt or something like that, but you want to avoid sustained pressure. Like, again, waist trainers are not my favorite thing in the world, and something like, corset type things are not something we want to go for long term. You also want to be sure that you're breathing expansively and not pinching your ribs by breathing up here. You want to breathe expansively all the way around. And if you do sit-ups and crunches, then know that you need to support yourself from below by engaging your pelvic floor and your low abs, and not just squeezing in the upper ab area. So anything that pinches when you don't have support from below is potentially a real problem when done for long periods of time. So to recap, we want to avoid straining, and times when you might strain are when you're going to the bathroom, having a bowel movement, or pushing to pee. Avoid that. And lifting. Be sure that you're lifting with an engaged core, that you're exhaling with exertion. Those are really important things to keep in mind. You also want to avoid hunching. Make sure your posture is good. You're lifted and strong. You don't need to be clenched, certainly do not need to be clenched through your core all day, but you need to be in a good alignment, and that will naturally keep your core muscles, including your pelvic floor, at their optimal level of tension, so that you're supported and aligned and you're not hunched and pressing down and in a funky position with your muscles and your organs. So nice and tall and lifted. You also want to be sure that you're not pinching around the middle for long periods of time. So no straining, no hunching, and no pinching. Remember these things, and you will be really setting yourself up for a great pelvic health that many women have never even thought of. Most of us have no idea that this is even an issue, that it's even a part of our body. So you're already a step ahead by just knowing this information. Just keep it in mind and know that this is an issue that's, again, common, and there's help for it. So if you do develop a pelvic floor problem, bladder leakage, or a feeling of heaviness in your pelvis, there are things you can do to help. Go to a pelvic floor physical therapist, and you can also check out my programs. The description of this video has links to my courses. So I hope this has been helpful, and if you have any questions at all, contact a local PT in your area or message me. Reach out. There's ways to get in touch on my website, and me or my team will support you. So take care of yourself, and until next time, I want you to please remember to eat clean, move every day, and understand this really important part of your body. There is hope and there is help if you develop an issue, but there's a lot you can do to prevent these problems before they even start. Remember, no straining, no hunching, and no pinching. Okay? I'll see you next time. Bye.